Please help me bring up Shawn Vela.
Thanks, bro. Hey guys, can I tell you guys a secret? I feel like we're all friends now. You know, we've all met each other, talked to each other behind the cameras. This is actually the first time I've ever been on stage giving any kind of talk whatsoever. So it may be clunky and it may be just very normal. That's my hope, right? Because I feel like we're all normal people and I'm just a person, just like you. So a little bit about myself, my story. I'm originally from Philadelphia, that's where I grew up. Yes, go Eagles, go Eagles. Phillies, everyone. All the Philadelphia teams are great to me. And I grew up there, met my wife. We actually met going to the same church when we were in middle school. So we're kind of like middle school sweethearts, right? So we, grew up, became adults, moved to Orlando, Florida, where it's beautiful and sunny and not cold at all. So we did not have to shovel snow, and so to me that was a win, right? Later, we had our first little boy, my son, his name is Zachary, and that's him getting his first haircut. He's very young. And fun fact about myself, just so everybody knows, a lot of people who know me know this about me, I'm actually very obsessed with sushi. I don't know why. Yes, I relate to you. Sushi's like one of my absolute favorite meals. And then when our son was first born, I don't know how many people have kids out there, but for us, it was very hard to go out and eat at restaurants. And this is pre-pandemic, right? So we're like, man, we really want to go to a restaurant, but there was this season in our life where we're just like, we just want to be there. So scared to take him out. Like, is he going to get sick? Is there going to be germs? Whatever. And so I vowed to my wife, I was like, look, the first time we go out to eat, it has to be sushi just because of how much I love it. So this photo is just strictly to show my wife the proof and to thank her for letting me bring my son, who is maybe a little bit too young to go out according to the doctors, to have sushi with me and her. So there you go. And just here's some more family photos that I love my family. I love being here and I'm extremely grateful to be in front of all of you today. And I just honor your time and I honor your hearts and your stories and everything that you do. So it's a little bit about me. I don't like to talk about myself very much, so it's kind of a little bit weird to be up here. But what we do in terms of our company, I would say the best way that I can explain it is I like to think of it as like a video marketing agency who specializes in helping organizations find the stories in their companies that they should be telling to their audience. And a lot of the times, they're the stories that they don't realize, or they're the stories that are the opposite of what they think they should be telling. And so the best way that I can explain what we do is to kind of show you this video and what it's like to work with us and have the experience of working with us. All right, you guys ready? Speeding. Camera speed. And action.
I got it.
Got it. I consider what we do as being stewards of stories. Our responsibility is authentic storytelling that motivates and inspires an audience. The main focus that we have is understanding what's important to the client. When we understand what they're really looking for and what their goals are, then we can craft what we do with the equipment. Whether it's a TV show, a commercial, a documentary, every project is completely different.
What's been so gratifying is how authentic everybody is through this entire process. The crew, the camera, Shawn, the director. So to be able to be part of something that's going to last and impact people, how do you put a price on that?
What was captured was really true to my story because Shawn made me not only feel comfortable, but I felt comfortable being myself and safe, allowing them to help me to tell my story.
Putting yourself in a position in front of a camera to step outside your box, to be vulnerable. I got the goosebumps right now because that's what it takes to grow. Absolutely, unequivocally worth it.
It is without a doubt worth every single penny, looking at probably a 25 times return on the investment as we move forward.
So I feel like you were able to see in the beginning my family And this video helps you see my extended family, right? So all the guys back here, Jeff, Kai, Tyler, Josh, they're all kind of my family. And I feel like this is more of an experience that we do. So working with us is more like, for me, being kind of like in the family, right? And one of the things that I feel like happens to me, right? I feel like I get to meet so many incredible people. And I don't know how many of you feel like this, but have you ever felt like your story is not good enough? The answer is yes for me. At least it is for me, because no matter how many people, and these are incredible people that I get to like interview or just be around. You know, we're talking different CEOs from crazy companies, or even people who go and out in the world and change the world through stopping human trafficking, or whatever it would be to be able to be involved or just be in the sphere of these incredible people. There's something that happens to me personally, and it fills me with extreme insecurity. And the insecurity for me is that my story is not good enough personally. Because what happens is I'm comparing, right? I'm comparing myself to like who I think these incredible people are just changing the world. And I'll give you an example of that. So there's a story that we told of this guy. His name is Ben. He has a coffee shop in Orlando. In fact, he has like 7 of them. And he goes out and he moved to Orlando. And one of the things that he said to me in his interview was, wherever I go, wherever I move, the city I live in should be different if I'm here. And that like convicted me. It made me feel like, man, I don't think like that. Like, dude, you're so great. Like, you're so awesome. Like, how come I'm not like that? So that insecurity, it just made me question it, right? Like, what, do I have a story of my own? I'm telling all these people's story, but it just made me feel really bad. And he ended up creating this organization, and even his company, why it exists, is like, I want to make a coffee shop, and the purpose of the coffee shop is not to sell coffee. It's to make people think differently in terms of the type of people that they should become. So what he does is he says, when you go to my shop, you don't have to pay a certain price. You can actually choose the price of the coffee when you go there. So you go there, and if you want to pay 50 cents for that coffee, you can pay 50 cents. If you want to go to that coffee shop and pay $10, you can do that. So to him, by implementing that, it was a choice of every time somebody makes a purchase, they're choosing the type of person that they want to become. So when I hear that, of course, incredibly inspiring. Are you kidding me? That's like freaking incredible, right? Like, the business that you have can literally affect and change the way that people can become. And so intimidated, again, incredibly intimidated for me, because like, man, I don't do that. I'm not changing my city. I'm not doing that. So that's just the feeling. And maybe you feel like this too. How many people feel like this in any kind of way? Or am I the only one? No. Okay, yeah. Great. 2 hands for me, because I'm literally feeling like this even right now. Being on the stage, following all these incredible people, it's like, dang, I feel like I'm imposter syndrome right now. Like, I don't deserve to be here. That's like my insecurity speaking to me, right? But if there's anything that I've learned over years of doing this, is that stories change people. The first example that came into my mind is the Bible. The Bible is this book full of stories that existed. It's almost like ancient history, right? And the stories in it are continually being told today, and they're changing people to this day, right? Whether we believe in it or not, it's just that's what's happening. People are reading the stories of the Bible or any religion, and they're being impacted by it, and something's happening to them, right? And so there you see stories of people who were burdened with addiction, burdened with greed, burdened with whatever you would call it that's self-destructive, and they're completely turning their lives around and turning it into a 180 because of the story that they're reading. And so, to me, seeing examples like that is like, wow, I believe that. You know, stories change people. And so, okay, that's great, right? So what do I do with that information, being here, sitting here in this moment now? How do we take the idea that stories change people and apply it to what we do? Because we're regular people. I'm a regular person talking to you, right? And so I'll tell you what I do when we help organizations tell stories, is I make story lists. And to me what that means is, it doesn't have to be every day, it's not like a rigorous thing. I will just keep track of things that are interesting to me, or stories that happen into my life that are memorable. The best way that I like to describe it to other people is, if I grow up one day and I get old, like some of my friends, right, I'm not gonna say their names, these are stories that I wanna look at and I wanna remember in case I ever get dementia, right? Like, I wanna have these stories and be like, here, you know, my son's son, or whatever, if I live that old. These are the stories that about my life and how it changed that I wish that I could remember in case, you know, God forbid something happened. So that's what I do. And I have Pizza Wednesday in there because I'm gonna tell you a story about that. So when we were filming Success in Your City with Brandon, there was a guy, his name was David France. And David France, very accomplished author, violinist, some people may know him in the audience, and he is just a regular guy like all of us, and he said something to me that completely impacted me and changed the way that I look at things. And I remember it was like we were filming and he did this thing called Baller Dinner. And what Baller Dinner is he would gather all his friends and I forget, it was like Tuesday or Wednesday, bring them into this house and they'd make dinner together almost like as a community, right? And for him, it was the idea of a tradition. Like, we have this tradition of bringing people in and making this food together. And the reason we do that is because if we look back on our lives, on the traditions that we've had in our lives, they create memories. Hopefully fond memories, and the more that you do it, those memories exist in like the subconscious of our minds. And so, I took that when my son was born, and we do a thing called Pizza Wednesday. So every Wednesday, I like to say every, sometimes we miss it, because we were here, we missed it, but or we'll change it to a Thursday, but we'll go to a store called Publix, and in Florida, it's a grocery store. And we'll go to the store, and we'll buy the pizza dough, we'll buy the sauce, we'll buy the cheese, but before we'll, you know, stroll by the lobster section because he still loves looking at the lobsters for whatever reason. That would fascinate me because I kind of have ADD too. I'm like, lobsters, right? Then we take it home, we put it on the table, we put on Dean Martin playlist, like that's amore with a pizza pie, and we're throwing it in the air. It's like really loud, right? It's incredible. And we make pizza, and that's our Pizza Wednesdays. And we've been doing that even before he could walk. So he'd be on the table like almost falling, I'd be holding him, and he'd be like taking sauce, putting it in his face and stuff. And so like, even today, he asked me, he's like, Daddy, guess what day it is? What day? Pizza Wednesday. So for me, that story that David France told me about his traditions changed me. It changed me in a way that I wanted to incorporate it in my life, and it actually changed me. So not only do I believe that stories change people, I also believe that people change the world. Changing the world doesn't have to mean changing every single person on the universe, right? Or changing a culture. It could literally mean changing the life of one person. With the right story, told to the right person at the right time, it could change their world. And in thinking about that, what I've also learned is that the byproduct of a good story, when it's told, it's usually remembered and passed on by its listeners. And I want to give you an example of that, of a story in my own life that changed my world. When I was 12 years old, I loved going to school. I loved it so much that I like made honor roll, was super proud, would come home and be like, Mom, look at this, like I made honor roll. This is phenomenal, right? At least that's what I thought in my mind, I guess. I probably didn't use the word phenomenal, but I was like, this is really cool, Mom. I remember one day I came home from school, and I got home, I opened the door, and as soon as I got home, like everything changed. And what happened was, I came home and I actually found that my mom passed away in our house. And when I came home, I was the one who found her. And for me, that story was hard, right? It was very hard for me when I was young, because I'm 12 years old, right? I'm a 12-year-old kid. I relied on this person, and in an instant, gone. And so that was the story that changed me. But what happened from there that changed my world was the people that came around me during that time, right? So my dad came around me, family came around me, and started putting me in things that maybe I didn't want to do at the time, but ultimately it was better for me. So, they would force me to go to church. They would force me to do these activities. And of course, at that point I became rebellious. I didn't want to do anything at all. And, but what happened was the support of that and my family coming into my life. And that's how I met my wife, right? And so the relationships around me, from the people in my life who heard that story, they changed my world. Because if that moment didn't happen and those people didn't come into my life, there's a really good chance that I wouldn't be here standing on the stage today. Maybe I'd be in Philadelphia. I used to wait tables. Maybe I'd be waiting tables, because the direct byproduct of all of those things was meeting different people, finding this passion of finding stories to tell that I maybe would have never found. And so how do we apply that, right? How do we apply this idea that stories change people and people change the world? So the moment that I started sharing that story or was open with some of those stories, people in my life would resonate with that, or I would just meet so many people who've gone through trauma or gone through a loss. And it was an instant bond, instant connection. And that's what life is all about for me, and I'm sure maybe you too, is meeting people and having relationships is really what enhances. So that for me to apply that in the real world is to take our story lists and start sharing them in the wild, right? When the pandemic happened, much like everybody else, I feel like we could all write a book on the what could have been of the pandemic, right? Because everybody had all these plans, everything like that, and then the world just shut off. And so for me, the first 2 weeks of it, I was actually like, holy crap, this is awesome. It's like a vacation, right? Because I'm sure many of you, we're traveling all the time, we're doing calls, and everybody's just trying to figure their life out. But one of the things that I did during that time is I started sharing my story list in the wild with my neighbors, right? And so I had these neighbors I always say hi to, hey neighbor, how you doing? Taking the trash out, go back in the house, not talk to them ever again. And then I started sharing just some of the things from my list, intentionally, saying hey, how you doing? I just want to tell you this story about this Pizza Wednesday that I do with my son. We just went to Publix. You should come over and try it out. And I shared that, and my world changed in my neighborhood, because these people that were just neighbors at the time, the howdy neighbor, see you later, became incredible friends. We hang out all the time. Our kids play together. And we just have this incredible friendship right now that never would have happened had I not tried to share my story list in the wild. Can I tell you something that really bothers me? How many of you have ever seen on the internet or on social media, maybe I'm the only one, those, I call them those dudes, right? Those dudes who go on the internet and they're guys, 100x your business right now. All you gotta do, hustle, get in there, sign up for my course. $1,297 is the price. If you get in now, I'll drop it down to $97. Or to get success, you have to be in this, private jet. Here's me in my Lamborghini, right? Or you see those people who try to use their idea of what authenticity is to kind of capitalize on it, right? It's like none of those things. That bothers me to my core. And the reason it bothers me is because of just how much I love stories, right? I love stories so much. And so with that said, I feel like a lot of people think that that's what video marketing is. And so in my mind, video marketing is, it's not about how loud we yell, it's about the stories we tell. And being intentional with the types of stories that we tell. I feel like corporations, when they get into this field, they try to tell stories. But we're people. Like we said in the beginning, we're people. And people have a story to tell. And I think that's the difference. Tapping into the idea that we're people with stories to tell. We're not corporations who are trying to capitalize on stories that exist in the wild and be like, oh yeah, let me try to tell this story real quick, because then it's like a whatever thing, and like put it in my marketing, whatever, right? I believe by focusing more on that, we are all genuine people and we all have a story to tell, that's when it changes, right? Because it's not about, the tactics that you use on social media, because this is the principle that can be put into any of those tactics, right? Whether you're talking about social media, podcasts, video podcasts, whether you're talking about, making video assets, or whether you're talking about writing a book, whether you're talking about whatever it is, it's like, we're not corporations, we're people. And you have a story to tell. So I want to give you an example of an organization that we worked with. I mean, we worked with a variety of different companies, organizations, restaurants, PR firms, agencies. But there's this one in particular that's standing out to me for this example right now, and it's this company in AmeriVita Home Care. And AmeriVita Home Care is an organization in Orlando, Florida, and what they do is they specialize in helping children with special needs and who live on like incubators, G-tubes, whatever. They're medically fragile children, and they have an in-home health company. And what they do is they send their nurses into the home to take care of these children, because the parents, it's extremely hard for the parents to take care of these children because of the needs that the children have. So they supply that. So what we did with them is we did exactly that. We looked for the stories. We looked for the stories of the people, the real people in their organization, and not from the company's perspective, but from the people's perspective, and told that story. And we did it in the form of making a documentary for them. We took the documentary, made movie posters, we made magazines, we made social media posts, we took the transcripts and made PR, press releases from it. But it's all the foundation of finding these stories. And based off of the way that we capture footage, we'll interview people. And from that interview, a lot of times what happens is, if anyone's ever been interviewed on camera by a video person before? Yes? I know. Don't lie, Jefferson. I interviewed you. What sometimes can happen is you'll spend like 20 minutes at the least, maybe 45, an hour at the most, and they'll interview you and they'll ask you all these beautiful questions, and you're like, oh my gosh, I killed that. I said so much great stuff that I feel like I can use it, right? And what happens is they end up making like a 2-minute video, and it comes out and it's like, oh, that's great. But what happened to the 48 minutes of great things that I just said? Like, where did that go? Oh, it's like on some dude's hard drive in his basement, right? And so what we like to do is, use that, right? If it's there, let's use it. And so we use that to tell different stories and make the magazines. So what I would love to show you is the trailer that we made for the documentary. It's actually available on Amazon right now, and you could go on Amazon and watch it, download it, but here it is.
Let's say your child is having 250 seizures a day and they're non-verbal. I could well imagine the feeling of being in a panic state 24/7.
The challenges a parent has can be enormous. Sometimes the care that's required is 24 hours a day, all night long, and that's an exhausting thing.
As a medically fragile child, you are completely dependent on others.
My sister Joanne was Jojo's mother, and she asked, will you be able to take care of Jojo? Something happened to me. She died. I said yes, but I was scared.
Mientras el huracán estaba pasando, yo pensaba que las ventanas se iban a arrancar. Cuando se fue la luz, la motivación mía era de mi hijo. Es importante la energía porque mi niño tiene ventilador, que eso es para los pulmones, más el oxígeno. Se funciona junto con el ventilador. O sea que eso, sin eso, pues, él no sobrevive.
You have a medical fragile child with all these different tubings living in a very tiny place where nurses were not even able to hardly move in that RV where he was living.
Anyone with special needs, ultimately, they are just like you and I.
I'm just getting his son in right now.
Who is there to deal with their problems or their issues that they're going through? Who is there to support them? And now you see, that's why we started Emmy Vita Home Care.
It's very, very special to have Emmy Vita part of the Step Up for Down Syndrome Walk.
We are so impressed by the heart of the staff at Emmy Vita. It's not just a job, but it's a true grown passion to serve families impacted by disability.
Sé que está en buenas manos, con buenas enfermeras, las 24 horas. Aparte de enfermeras, es como una familia para nosotros.
Jojo, I don't think he will be happy without Emmy Vita. He has a lot of needs. He's a miracle baby. So when he's looking at you, he sees inside of you. Jojo is special because he's here.
So that story still gets me because of their heart, right? Because of their heart. And what we did alongside with them, because we don't do it independently, is we help them to find the stories that they should tell, right? And so with them, we made the story list. We did all the process of helping them choose the stories, and we focused on the people, not like, look at our organization, look at our nurses. I mean, that's in there, you get it, but we said it without saying it, right? And so I think that's also one of the keys to doing stuff like this. But to close, I just kind of want to recap for 3 main takeaways and 3 action steps. 1, to remember that, again, stories change people, and people change the world. And it's not about how loud we yell, it's about the stories we tell. So remember to, 1, make story lists. 2, test them in the wild. And 3, tell the story of others. Sorry, that's a typo. I told you guys I was working on it. I'm just a human, so like, complete typo. But it's to tell the stories of others. Focus on other people first, not ourselves, and focus on people. So I know there's still time. I would love, if anybody has any questions, I would love to do questions, but if not, I just want to say that thank you all so much just for even listening and for the privilege of being here next to incredible people. I still, to this moment, feel like I don't deserve to be here. I still, to this moment, feel like my story isn't good enough. But I'm very privileged to get to know all of you and hear your stories and to be able to help you tell your stories. So, thank you.